Hello, my name is Christopher Columbus, and I was well known because at a certain age I was a dreamer. I was born in Italy around 1446. I was the son of Domenico, a bull weaver, and Susanna. But it was at the orders of the Castilian crown that I made history. My early years are not interesting, so I can start to speak to you about my life since 1480, when I was already a sailor working for the King of Portugal. During this first year as a sailor, I traveled to several different locations to trade. So I knew how difficult it was to arrive to the lands in the east after the fall of Constantinople. But this experience gave me also the opportunity to have contact and listen to the tales of people that insisted on the certitude of being lands on the west side of the Atlantic Ocean. I read as much as I could, mainly documents founded on Marco Polo's travels. I studied all the existing documents and I became convinced that the Earth was a round shape, a sphere, and so it was possible to arrive to Asia crossing the Atlantic Ocean in west direction. And it was my dream to be the first one to travel through this route. Of course, I was just a poor sailor, and it was not possible to me to pay for such an expedition. I had neither ship nor crew to be involved in the project. So I had to look for a patron to support the project. So I asked at first to the Portuguese king, but after consulting some of the wise men in his court, he refused to accept the collaboration. At the moment, I took a decision that changed my life. I left Portugal and moved to Castile. It, it was no easy, but I managed to convince Queen Isabella. And, and on April the 17th, 1492, the capitulation of Santa Fe were signed. And this document, both parts agreed about what each of us will receive after the trip. It was also hard to find an appropriate crew, 90 men, but finally on August the 3rd, 1492, we left Palos Port with three ships, Pinta, Niña, and Santa Maria. The trip had their problems, full of riots and doubts, as we were heading to the unknown. On October the 12th, we saw a land in the distance. We have arrived to the Indies. We gave these new territories the name of San Salvador. I, I was never conscious I have arrived at a new land. It was not until 1507 that, after proving that I have arrived at a new continent, it started to be named America. San Salvador was in fact one of the Bahamas Islands. I also visited Cuba and current Haiti, and a third Spanish township was founded. Finally, we traveled back to Spain, where I arrived on March the 15th, 1493. In April, I visited the Catholic king and queen and could explain to them what I found and the details of the trip. I was authorized to take part in 3 other ships, discovering several islands and arriving to the continent. I finally passed away on May the 20th, 1506, and was buried in Valladolid, even when I was moved several times later.